Alright, welcome to our very first tutorial in Photoshop for computer graphics, introductory level with Mrs. Shore. If you struggle with this audio, please make sure that you let Mrs. Shore know right away so that she can check the volume settings on your computer. If you have any other issues with seeing the video as well, make sure that you are right-clicking and opening with Real Media Player. So we're going to start in Photoshop today. This is our first lesson, lesson 1A, which is simply to show you the desktop, to get used to seeing where things are at, and some general layout ideas so that as we go through this first few lessons, you're not completely lost. As always, though, if you have any questions, make sure you just raise your hand and let Mrs. Shore know. So we're going to start here first with the interface. This first top section here is what's called the menu bar. That's where you're going to have your basics for opening and managing files. As we get into advanced editing with image software of color, and value, and tone, those would be in here. We'll get into layers, type, and a wealth of these as we continue on. This second row down is your options or control panel, depending on who you talk to. In this class, we'll simply call it the options bar, the options panel. This panel has all the different characteristics for each of the tools. So if I select a different tool in the toolbox, you'll see that the options bar at the top will change so that it better represents the characteristics of that tool. While we're on the tools, this is your toolbar to the left here. You can change it so that it's a double column, or by clicking on this double arrow here, you can make it a single column icon. It's up to you, whichever way you feel best works for you. You can click on that viewing option. The tools are grouped by similar characteristics. So this first group setting is all your selections, is all the different tools that you can be using to make and move different options and objects around within the image window. So you have things like the move tool, you have your selection tools here, you have eyedropper tool, crop tool, and we'll be going over all these as we continue. You'll then see a little bar here which separates this group of tools with this group of tools. These are your painting and editing tools. So if you're going to be doing painting or drawing, that's where the majority of these tools are going to be. And then when you get into more graphic things where you're dealing with custom shapes or type tools, working with vector paths, this is where you would go down in here. The bulk of our first few lessons, we're going to be up in here the first few days, and then we will gradually go through these. A couple things about the tools. If you are unfamiliar with what the name of a tool is, or you can't find a tool, if you simply let your mouse hover for a second, you'll see it pops up. It will tell you what it is. So this is a quick selection tool, and then it will have a letter at the end of it. So in this case, for the quick selection tool, it's W. What that means is it's the keyboard shortcut. So if I were to click on a W on my keyboard, it would select that. So I'm going to come off my screen, and I just hit W. Notice it now selected that quick selection tool. You're also going to notice with some of these tools that there's a little white arrow in the corner. What that means is it's actually a drawer, and there are more tools underneath. To open that drawer, you must simply click and hold your mouse button. The drawer will pop open. You slide over to select the other tools. So you can go ahead and try that. You'll notice that some have a lot of tools in the drawer, some have just a few, and there are a handful that have no drawer. So if the move tool here has no other tools, that means that there's no other tools that are similar to that tool, because they're going to group similar tools. So the magic wand tool, quick selection tool, they're in the same drawer because they're very, very similar. If you have a toolbox at home, it's like kind of grouping all your socket wrenches together in the same drawer of varying sizes. All right, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to look at our panels over here. So panels are ways in which that you can fine-tune the tools and their advanced options for Photoshop. The first thing you'll notice is that they are floating panels, which means you can grab the bar at the top and you can move them around. You can resize them by clicking and dragging on the bottom or the sides, or even a corner. Each one's going to be slightly different. Each one does have a tab at the top that's going to tell you what that panel is, and you can dock them. You can sandwich them with other panels. This little double-headed arrow is going to collapse it over to the right. So you can move those around. If you want to make them free floating again, you simply click and drag. If you want to close the panel completely, you click on the X. So I'm actually going to do that here. I'm going to show you how I can close out all of these panels, clearing my desktop, so to speak. Now they're not gone forever, they've simply been put away. You can think of this desktop simply as the top of a desk. So we've now cleared the desk, we've put all of those files away. To go back to those files, you'll go to Window. Window is your file cabinet for where all those panels are. You'll even see the tools is down here. So if I click on this, notice that toolbar clear. So if you ever lose the toolbar, know it's a panel just like the others. You simply have to turn it back on. You'll notice the options bar at the top is also in there. So if you lose that options bar, go back to your window, turn that one back on. All right, so going back here, I can open another panel. I'm going to open up layers. That's probably your most common one that you're going to be using quite a bit. I can redock it if I want to. Now, if you get a complete jumbled up mess and you want to go back to your defaults, the easiest way is to reset your Essential desktop formation. So you'll click on Essentials up at the top, and you'll go to Reset Essentials. This is going to put everything back to the way it generally should be. So kind of like an instant button for cleaning your bedroom. If you click on this button, everything's going to go back to where it should be, and you can find most everything. All right, so that's your panels. We're going to go ahead and we're going to talk a little bit about opening files and working with different images in Photoshop. So let's start by opening a file. We're going to click on File up at the top, and we're going to go to Open. Now if I were to go to New, I'm going to cancel that for a second. If I were to go to New, it's going to give me a blank document, which means a flat white, almost like a blank piece of paper. And we will do this later on in the semester, but for most of us, for most of the time, we're going to be opening up a document that's already created, or you're going to be opening up a photo. So we're going to go to File, Open, and this is going to bring you to the main on-ramp, what I like to call the on-ramp for all the files. Generally speaking, you're going to click on that computer button to the left. Okay, that's how you first get onto our network here. Now, my network is going to be a little bit different. You're going to have your folder with your last name, first initial, and you will probably have a courses folder. You will not have these two others. Okay, I have those because I'm the teacher. To get to all of the lessons, all of our files that are my files for these lessons, you're going to go to courses. So I'm double clicking on that. And this is an art class. So I'm going to go into art. And then we're going to go to computer graphic lessons. And here, there's Illustrator lessons in Photoshop. This is a Photoshop class. We're going to double click on the Photoshop lesson, and we are going to be going into lesson 1. Again, I'm just double clicking. Now I'm going to show you a little bit about opening multiple files at the same time. Whenever we do a lesson, and we first start the lesson, we're always going to open up the end and the start file at the same time, so that you can see where we're going with this lesson. So let's go ahead and click on the 01AN file. You're going to hold down the Control key, and you're going to click on the Start file and click Open. The reason you hold down Control is Control allows you to select multiple files at one time for opening. Right now it's going to look like it only opened up one file when in fact it did open up two. If I click on it, you'll notice how they change. Now if you look at the image, it gets a little bit lighter. So basically what we're going to be doing in this lesson, this first one, is we're going to be just messing with the colors a little bit. We're just getting to know the work area. Now if I want to see both of these images at the same time, we're going to turn those into free floating panels as well. I'm going to click on the tab and I'm just pulling that down. I'm going to do that with the other one. I'm going to click on that tab and pull it down. Now I've got both of my images open and they're side by side. I can resize these. I can move them in and out just like I can the panels. And you'll notice when I make them smaller to where the image doesn't fit, I'll then get these scroll bars where I can scroll around in the image. And we're going to talk about zooming here in a little bit. Although I can have multiple files open at one time, I really can only work with one file at a time. So you always have one active file. And I know that this one is my active file simply because the file name at the top, and again it's going to tell you what your file name is, it's going to be here highlighted. Notice here where it's a little bit more muted. That means it's open on my desktop, but it's not the active file. Okay? I can redock those if I want to. I can pull those back up. I prefer to have them floating, especially if I have them side by side. Alright, so what we're going to be doing here is we're just going to make some slight alterations. Our end file is actually going to look a little bit different than theirs. I always kind of go above and beyond. I show you a few other little tricks of the trade that they don't have in the tutorial. But we're generally speaking going to do something where we're going to end up changing the colors. Alright, so we can go ahead and close that end file. And we're going to save the start file. Right now, if I were to make changes, I can make as many changes as I wanted to, but if I wanted to save it, it's not going to allow me to make any saved changes because this file is protected. It's in my lessons folder. So we're going to go up, we're going to go File, Save As. Go back to that computer button because we're saving for the first time. You're going to go into your folder, and we're going to set up a folder system. This is the first time you're going to do this. You're going to get used to doing this. It's going to become second nature. So we're going to click on this new folder button. Let's call this Computer Graphics. And click Open to that. I already have another file, so it's just asking me if I want to make another one. In here, we're going to create, actually, go back here. We're going to create 3 more folders in here. So you're going to click on this new folder button 3 times, and I want you to create folders called Lessons, My Photos, and Projects. You can pause the video now to do that. Now that you've made your 3 photos, I want you to double click and open up the Lessons folder. And we're going to call this file 1A. And click Save. Now I'm getting this because I already have this file in here. You shouldn't get that. It should immediately save it. Now, we do not have to go to File, Save As from this point on. You only have to go to File, Save As the very first time that you save a file. From here on out, we simply have to go to File, Save. Alright, so zooming in and zooming out. Just so that you can see how navigation works in here, because you're going to have to zoom in and out a lot. The rest of this tutorial is simply working with the zoom tool and the selection tools. So we're going to navigate down and we're going to grab our zoom tool, which is this tool here, or you can see that the keyboard shortcut is Z. Click on your little magnifying glass, and I simply want you to click 1 time on the headlight. And notice if you click again, it's going to continue to zoom in. If you want to zoom out, you can do one of 2 things. You can change up in the options bar to the minus or subtract and zoom back out. Or if you're lazy like me, I like to hold down my Alt key. Notice when I hold down the Alt key, it automatically switches it to that subtract. I hold down Alt, and it's going to zoom me back out. If I release the Alt key, I can then zoom back in. So go ahead and zoom in a few times. Again, I just want to remind you that once you've zoomed in and out, you'll get those scroll bars you can navigate around in. Another way you can navigate around in here is to grab the hand tool. Notice it's right next to your zoom tool. That means that those tools, typically you're using them together. So I'm going to click on my hand tool, and now if I click and drag, it's going to move that around in the image window. Another way that I can move around inside that image window is a panel. This is one of the nice things about Photoshop is there's a million different ways to do the same thing in Photoshop. That's also why it takes so long to learn it. But once you do get past these first few lessons, I guarantee it does get much easier. So we're going to open up a panel. Remember to get all of your panels. If it's not out here already, you simply have to go to Window, and this time we're going to open up the Navigator panel. Notice it's not checked. That means it's not out. Right now, I only have the adjustments, the color, and the layers out because I know this because they're checked. But we're going to open up the Navigator. Typically, it pops it out right in front. Now, if I look at my Navigator panel, see I've got this little red box here. That means that's the zoomed in part. So the cool thing is, if I move around with my hand tool, see how that red box moves. I can also, if I still have my zoom tool and I didn't want to grab that hand tool, I can come in here and move it around in here. I can also zoom in and out this way. Alright, go ahead and stay zoomed in. I'm going to show you another couple shortcuts, and then we're going to make some changes here, and I'll let you have a little fun. So if I wanted to zoom all the way back out, and I'm too lazy to hold down the Alt key and click a bunch of times, I can simply double click that hand tool, and it's going to zoom me out to full screen. Okay? Show you again another way to zoom in. I can click, or I can click and drag. If I click and drag, it will zoom me in rather than keeping click and click and click. Sometimes that gets to be a bit too much. Now another way, instead of double clicking the hand tool, which is my preferred method, but another way is you can go up to View, up at the top, Fit on Screen. Now, notice there it says Control 0. That is another keyboard shortcut. Some people tend to like the keyboard shortcuts. If you want to use those, you can. That means simply I would hold down Control and hit my 0. And mine isn't working for some reason. So I'm just going to click Fit on Screen. I might have an issue with my keyboard right now. So that is zooming and navigating in and around in Photoshop. So let's go ahead and show you what selections do and show you why they're so important in Photoshop. Again, we're just getting to know the software. I'm going to change my toolbox to my double column because that's my preferred viewing mode for the toolbox. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to switch my marquee tool to the elliptical. So I'm going to click and hold and pull out that drawer, and I want to grab the elliptical marquee tool. All of these first basic tools, these groupings, they're all meant for selections. What a selection does is it controls the changes that you make in an image so that it's only in a specified selected area. So what this tool does is if I click and drag, it's going to make a circular selection. You're going to get what I call marching ants. You can kind of see those here. What that means now is if I make changes, it's only going to allow me to make changes to what's inside the circle, and it's going to protect everything outside the circle. All right? If I don't like the marquee, if I don't like my selection, it's a poor selection, I can go up to Select, Deselect, or I can use that keyboard shortcut, Control D, and deselect it. So that was my keyboard shortcut, Control D. So go ahead and try that a few times. Go ahead and try to drag an elliptical marquee. Notice when I release my mouse button, it closes the selection. If I click inside, it moves the selection around. Alright, so go ahead and do that. You can pause the video until you get a good selection. Just do it so it's somewhat around the headlight. Alright, now that you have a good selection, I'm just going to show you what a selection does. And we're just going to change the lighting inside this elliptical marquee. So we're going to go up to Image, Adjustments. What you need to know about the adjustment commands are they control color, they control value in a Photoshop file. All of them are in here, and we will have a lot of lessons that go over those. But we're just going to go ahead and we're going to go to Hue and Saturation. And to be fair, you can pick on any of these, and I'll give you some time to play here. You're going to get a dialog box that pops up. This is where you make your changes. Now, if I click on Hue, it's changing what's called the hue or the color. Notice it's changing the colors that are inside, so it's tinting in a blue or it's adding purple. Saturation means the intensity of those colors, so you can think of it in terms of neon or black and white. So you can kind of play around with that. Lightness and darkness is referring to the value, how light or dark it is, dark or pastel-y. Alright, so go ahead and you can do that and click OK to close that. I'm going to show you one more kind of fun thing, and then I'll let you play for a few minutes here before you close this file. We want to make changes to outside the circle now instead of the inside, so the easiest way to do that is to flip or inverse the selection. We're going to go up to Select, Inverse. If you look really closely, the marching ants are still here around the circle, but if you look closely, you can see they're now around that outside edge. So what we actually have is the selection here, and this is protected. So with this area selected here, let's go up to Filter, and we're going to open up our filter gallery. We will have a lot of instruction on the filters later. I'm just kind of showing you what Photoshop does. I'm zooming out so I can kind of see my changes. You can see all the different options for filters here. These are all our artistic filters. We have brush filters. If you've ever used the Prisma app on your phone, you'll know these are similar to like Prisma app filters. In fact, that's where it comes from. You can make changes to the side. So you can go ahead and make changes how you see fit. Have a little fun. When you're happy with that, simply click OK. And let's go to File, Save As, or Save. It should go right back to that last folder that you saved to. And you may close, and that is Lesson 1A. Good job.